Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a new series of The Struggle Within on Ahlulbayt TV, and my guest is Sayyid Hassan Sadr, who's going to take us through these stages. This is a series and is loaded up online, so if you miss any one of these programs, you can just go to YouTube and access it online as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So to continue the discussion, what are we going to talk about today?
Why do we have so much suffering, so many wars, so many conflicts? And if anyone in the audience is not aware that we are, despite the technological advancement, that we are in such a steep decline in terms of equality, the gap between the rich and the poor, how many victims the human race is causing just within us as a family of human beings, then one must just switch on the news and see. And I do appreciate that media outlets tend to show bad news, and there are so many good things happening, but you can't escape the fact that conflicts are on the rise, wars are on the rise, the gap between the rich and the poor, the abnormal distribution of wealth and resources between the different parts of the world. It is such a painful reality that we don't seem to have a way of solving or resolving. And if people are thinking, the current world order, the United Nations, the Security Council, is the way forward, then I would like to disagree and say I don't think these bodies are doing enough, or certainly have a blueprint of how to resolve these issues. And they've been there for around a few decades now, and then failing to resolve these issues, and the issues are getting worse and worse and worse. So what else do we need to do? In terms of structure, the world has few democratic governments, the United Nations, Security Council, and so on. There are bodies out there, and elections are happening in different parts of the world, but the results are not satisfactory. We are not able to solve the problems, and the problems keep getting worse and worse and worse. Islamically, very briefly, we would like to share with the audience two pillars within the Islamic theology, within the Islamic faith, that help to resolve the problems of our world, the global problems of our world. And in fact, you can say they resolve even the personal, individual problems. There is no better example than real life examples, and I think there's so many people who could share this with us. But if we want to speak on a macro level, there are two pillars. Number one, the resources that appear to be limited in this world, and how the human race is competing within for these resources, for the enjoyment of these resources, for money, wealth, housing, anything, land. It's all about resources. And because there's competition around these resources, problems are happening. Problems are happening between individuals because of such competition. Problems happening between neighboring countries because of such competition. There's a limited resource of A or B, and you just need to compete. The second pillar, the second reality, is what do you enjoy in this life? What do you make as the aim out of the 20, 50, 30, 70 years that you want to spend? What do you want to be spending those years doing? So I guess if I want to rephrase, resources and what to enjoy. Islamically, if you want to analyze things on a macro level, all problems of our world are happening because of competition.
Right.
For limited resources. And people are unfortunately committing forbidden acts, haram, illegal. They're taking illegal steps to acquire certain resources. Islam helps to solve this problem by reminding humanity that whatever resources you think are limited in this world, they are found in abundance in afterlife. So we think that we have 20 years to enjoy this, hence you need to spend those 20 years competing to acquire. And if you lose, then you've lost. You've lost your opportunity. It's only 20 years. Islam says death is not the end. When your life in this world ends, that's not the end of you. The resources are found in abundance, in fact unlimited abundance, in the real life, in the afterlife, in life after death. And here, previously in the series, we've used logic and reason to conclude that there must be life after death. However, what kind of life, the details of it, we have to now open the Quran that has descriptions of God that match the rational conclusions about Him, and then find out what kind of life there is. And the details described in the Quran and in other religions, like Christianity and Judaism, is that there is abundance of resources to enjoy. If you have lived in a very small house in this life, and you've looked at others, and you thought about doing the wrong things, or to acquire a bigger house, a bigger property, or you've spent all your life in sorrow that, what's the difference between you and him, me and her? Why does she live in a 5-bedroom house and I live in a small flat? And I'm in my 60s, I'm almost dying now, and I've just missed out. Islam says you haven't missed out, because when you die, if you spend those 50 years doing the right things, we'll come to what the right things are, then death will open the gate for you to enjoy not a 5-bedroom house like the descriptions in the Quran. It's paradise, it's heaven. And if you want a glimpse of heaven, just go out there to nature and just open your eyes, open your ears, open your heart and look. And remember that paradise, heaven, Al-Jannah, is far bigger and better than what you can see. If you've spent all your life in a flat or a small house and you had limited amount of money, then do the right thing, and then the resources are in full abundance in the hereafter. And the description of this are so many in the Quran. So for individuals and for the human race, for nations, to compete on limited resources, Islam immediately reminds them that there is no reason to compete. If you miss out, if you don't get it in this life, you don't get the opportunity to enjoy it, make sure you do the right things, and then you will enjoy it in abundance without any limits in the afterlife.
This is often in the context of worldly detachment, which is seen as the first stage not the first stage, but a key practice in cultivating spirituality. So these verses in Holy Quran talk about, how the life of this world is temporary. It's an enjoyment. It's a place where people compete in wealth and children, or it's like someone who's planted some seeds and it grows into green, lush green field, and then dries up
eventually. Which of course will take us to the second pillar of what are we spending those 20 or 30 years doing? Are we chasing these worldly enjoyments, or are we directing our attention and our enjoyment to something else? But even before we talk about this, let's just take a break and remember that physical, materialistic enjoyments, before we talk about the spiritual, real ones, those ones that are limited in this world, if you miss out on them, then you have not missed out. Death is not the end. Death will open the gate for you to enjoy materialistically far better and more abundant resources in the afterlife. But of course, the real thing that you should be doing is redirecting the ambitions, directing the drive that we have for success, for development, for acquisition, not of materialistic enjoyments, but of the higher values that drive us closer and closer to the Almighty Lord, the absolute perfection. So instead of Islam, instead of the world teaching us that it's all about, and I'm not, please, I hope the viewers do not take this as an attack or as an insult on anyone, but if the whole focus of the year is work, 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 so you could have a holiday, and people are competing on where to spend the holiday and what kind of resources they can get for a cheaper price, then if this is the focus, or the focus is all about, I need to be comfortable at my house, I need to be comfortable in my car, I need to be comfortable in the furniture at home, I need to be comfortable, I need to acquire more or acquire better to feel better, so I could live better, so I'm more comfortable, I'm happier. Islam says, if you really want to be happy, then make sure you redirect all this thirst and effort to something else. Don't negate the materialistic side, but use them as stepping stones. You know, get the basic, get the what our scholars who've written about this, they say, get the medium level. If you're strong enough, get the basic level. But if you're not that strong, get the medium level of physical enjoyment, just so you could be, you know, with everybody else. Kind of. But if you really want further development, then start, you know, sacrificing, start losing out actively on some of these materialistic enjoyments. So the basics would just leave you more comfortable in your spiritual growth. What you should be directing your enjoyment is when you help more people, not acquire more. When you help more people, when you do the right thing, when you win over your self. You know, the self is pushing you to do something for its comfort, and you have the ability to control it. And you do something and you're in control. That sense of you are in control is it's the sweetest thing anyone can experience. And no one can describe it until you actually experience it. In fact, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, those who do not sacrifice for Allah, those who do not go through a test and actively avoid the sin, refrain from the sin, will not taste the sweetness of ibadah.
Right.
You need to do it. What you should be directing your efforts to do is to be more in control of yourself, to crush the ego without any limits. Keep crushing the ego, keep doing the right thing, speak out the truth. And don't speak out the truth when it's fashionable. Speak out the truth when it's least fashionable. Indeed, support those who are speaking against injustices. But remember that if it is easy and without a price to pay, then okay, there's a reward there. But that's different from speaking out when there is no reward there, or it's unacceptable, or you may pay price for that. So the second pillar of Islam in trying to solve the world's problems is redirect our enjoyments and our aims from the materialistic world, which it tells us that is more abundant out there when you die. Redirect them to enjoy other aspects, the moral, the spiritual. The more you gain, the higher you ascend, the better. The better you feel, the closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more perfect you are as a human being.
Also, I think what Islam teaches, I mean, we find in a lot of the stories of people who convert to Islam, they were kind of immersed in a very materialistic life, not necessarily liking it, but they had got into that, and actually they haven't learned to value themselves or how to respect themselves. And what Islam teaches is about self-respect and how to have respect between people as well. So in that sense, it's about learning your worth and your value as a human being and appreciating the worth and value of others. So I think a lot of why we get so much angry behavior and delinquent behavior among people is because of they haven't managed to connect to themselves, and they haven't learned their own worth, and they haven't found that respect for themselves and for others. And we find a lot of people like ex-criminals and so on who come into Islam. I've heard stories where, what it has taught them is that, it's taught them how to be their best selves. And then that's only something that you build on. And thanks for watching. Assalamu alaikum.